Hey everybody, in a previous video we looked at using the motion graphic tools to create an organic kind of pattern, move things around the composition. But of course there may be times, and you'll see a lot of examples in our tutorial folder, of when we want to use motion graphics on a grid or a diagonal. So I'm going to show you how to do that with letters and a couple of other tools like the invert, how to invert your graphics that you bring in to make them work with figure ground, and some other things. So let's go see what I have set up here. Um, in my timeline, I have a couple of layers. I have just a plain old photo here, and I have just one of my letters imported from Photoshop, where I just made a plain old H on a white background, a letter on a white background. And we made a bunch of these files. So I've imported a couple of them, and I'm going to show you how to add motion on a horizontal axis. So I'm lining them up in here. They come in, and they come in just a few frames long. So I'm going to stretch them out to fill the length of my photograph, which is about 10 seconds. And I'm going to double click on it so I can pull it up in my effects control here. So what I'm going to do is double click on this, and you see how I get handles here, so I can stretch and shrink. And I can also, if I pull the handles on the side, I can see how I can rotate this, which is a very powerful tool. And when I open up my motion effects, I can also pay attention to those numbers, like in scale and position. So that means whatever I do to this, including rotating it, see my little rotation degree button moving, I can change it over time in my timeline, and that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and move this H over to the lower right because I'm going to have it come in to spell the word hello. But I'm going to do a couple of things to it first because it doesn't really look good with a white background. So the first thing I'm going to pull up is color key, or maybe I'll type in key because there's less of them. And then I find my color key effects filter, and I'm going to click and drag that right into that H just to make sure it gets in the exact right spot. And I have a couple of options here. So I'm going to grab the little eyedropper, and you can see I can key out any color in there, but I'm just going to go ahead and key out the white. And you may be able to see that it does a pretty excellent job, except there's a little bit of an edge there. I'm not sure how well you can see that, but these buttons here, color tolerance, there may be it's probably showing up because some pixels aren't exactly white. They're just very, very, very light gray. So I'm going to pull that tolerance down, and I'm going to make it as slight as possible because when this blows up large, I don't want to see any artifacting. The other thing I could do if that didn't work is edge thinning, but I'm actually not going to do that because I don't want to um, tweak my edge. And you may want to put a little feather on that just in case there's a little pixelation. We'll see when it enlarges. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Could have a little bit less of an edge there. Okay. But actually I think black on this photograph isn't very good. Typically white will look good. So instead of having a black letter, I'm going to change it to a white letter. And many filters have an invert tool, but there's also just an effect that does nothing but invert it. And so it will just give me a negative of whatever it is that I created. Okay, so that's good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work in the motion filter, and I'm going to turn my position toggle on so that I can indeed make a keyframe at the beginning of my clip. So I'm going to click on that to pull up my handles, and I'm going to slide to where I want the next keyframe, and so I have a lot of letters to make and pull in, so I'm going to go halfway in and I'm going to make another keyframe, and then I'm going to click and drag, and I'm holding down the shift key, and I'm also paying attention to this line. See how I can see if this line is horizontal or not. And when I think it is, I can let go, and we'll just look at that. And so there is my H coming in, looking a little soft, I have to say, not a very crisp H. So I think what I'll do is select that H and turn off the motion, bring down the color tolerance, because I think when it's in motion it's looking a little too soft, and maybe the feather down a little bit. Okay. And we'll see how that looks. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my E. I'm going to double click on it, pull up the effects, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. And very happy to, let's bring it up here so we can see it right there. And I'm going to pull it down here. And I'm going to bring it here so that I'm at the edge. And I can also bring in the invert into here and click it, drag it in here, and the color. But what I'm going to do is, because I'm going to do a few of these, I'm actually going to double click on the H filter or the H channel, and I'm just going to select that color key because I tweaked that a little bit till I like it, and then go back to the E and simply paste it. And you can see that it's actually inverting it in the wrong order. So I have my color key first, and then I invert it. And it's going to make it go a little bit higher. Okay. And now I'm going to look at my motion and create a keyframe here. And then I'm going to drag it out, and I want to make sure the H is already where it's supposed to be, and then give it a few frames, and put my second keyframe there. So the keyframe will give me the 2 frames is all I'm making, and the keyframe tells Premiere that I want everything that's in between in those 2 things. Okay, so now let's look at it. Okay, and then I'm going to keep working on those and bring in my other 3 letters until I have a little animation that looks something like this when all my layers are put together. Okay, so the idea is that you can create a composition by combining organic path flows over time and geometric path flows over time. So give this a try on your exercise for the montage piece.